Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back. I am here to talk to you today about our next big um, art movement in the history of art, and we are into Expressionism. Expressionism started in the early 20th century, so the early 1900s, and it went through probably leading up to World War II. I mean, honestly, there are still expressionistic artists around today. Um, and we can talk about that. They're still around, just like impressionists. But it's the next big step in the movement of art. So, what are expressionists? Well, for expressionists, impressionism didn't really take, the creativity too, far enough. For them, they wanted to take it to the next step. So with impressionism, the artist gives a quick impression of what they saw, at that moment, and change it up with the colors or whatever, but it's a quick impression of how that artist felt. The picture stays the same. There is a little bit of, feeling to it. You can feel with the colors or choices, but item, the object of the painting generally stays intact. For expressionism, expressionism is the artist expressing their feeling and emotion in the painting using, again, bright, vivid colors, lots of thick paint, and things like that. But expressionism is different from impressionism in that objects start getting distorted, bigger, smaller, brighter, bolder, um, in order to really punch home the feelings that the artist had at the moment of the art. So, for example here, this is, would be a turtle kind of in between impressionism um, and expressionism. So there's that fine line where you get from impressionism to post-impressionism to expressionism. Some people credit Vincent van Gogh and his art styles with kind of the start of expressionism. But really, it started in Germany, got really popular in Germany, and it went through the Weimar Republic. Maybe it was used in some propaganda and things like that. But artists really getting into expressing their thoughts, their feelings, their opinions, all of that stuff through their art. Now, again, this is changing a lot and in a very short period of time, because remember, everything up until the Impressionistic period was realism. So we've gone, from realism to, a little bit farther out there with Impressionism to, Fauvism, where we were, changing up the colors and really going bold. It didn't have to be realistic or natural colors. Remember the girl's face was green, things like that. And almost a childlike painting where it really simplified the styles to now we're distorting things. Okay, let me give you some ideas besides this one. Okay, the Scream might be one of the most notable. It's probably one of the most famous or most recognizable, paintings out there. One of them, anyway. So the Scream would definitely be when you can feel how everything is distorted. The person's face is just off. The people are taller than they should be. Everything is stretched and it's just crazy. You can feel those brushstrokes. You can feel that fear or, that feeling that that artist was trying to, put into the painting. That's expressionism. All right. This would be kind of on the border between expressionism and the next step up, which is going to be cubism. But again, these blue horses, they wouldn't be blue. They're bigger and things like that. I don't have the whole painting on here, so my apologies, but I just wanted to get some of these, on here to show you. Big, bold colors, distorted figures, everything is expressing what that artist is thinking and feeling. Here's another one with what appears to be an older woman, again, probably crossing that line of Expressionism and Cubism, which we're going to get into next. I promise it's coming. But it's really, going a little bit further. So, there's a couple things you can do. When I first got introduced into Expressionism, I think I was in 4th or 5th grade. And what we did, we took, a picture. So let's just take this picture, for example. And what I was told with Expressionism was you pick out one key feature and you kind of distort it. Okay, so you could do that. Mine, I picked a picture of like a cool little splash coming up over a rock. Well, it was just very small, but of course, in my expressionistic picture, like I made it take up like the whole thing. Um, you could do that here with, either the quarterback. You could make that football really large. You could make this, defensive guy who's coming after the quarterback. You could make him even bigger, kind of like a David and Goliath kind of feel to it. You could do something like that with any picture. All right. If it's a flower or something that, is in a field and there's a landscape, you could make the flower bigger and just put in some really big, bold colors. That would be a lot of fun for your elementary school kids, even if you wanted to do that for middle school or high school. I took it, a little bit farther with, what the artists were actually doing. If you want to, you can Google, or search Expressionism pieces. This was something that I drew back in 2020. Okay, I was having a bad day anyway, and it was just one of those things where just felt like everything was falling apart on that day. And where I grew up for a while in the Midwest, and we had tornadoes there. And something that we had to do would be to, periodically we'd have our fire drills, but we'd also have tornado warnings, and we'd have to have tornado drills. And so you'd, sit with your legs crossed. You'd put your head in between your knees, and you put your hands crossed over your head and neck. And you do that, you sit under your desk like that. That was just in case a tornado came. I don't even know if they still do that or not, but I remember it from when I was a kid. And so for me, when I feel like sometimes life is getting a little overwhelming, I tend to think about that. I'm not an expressionistic artist. In fact, this one was kind of my first stretch into it when I went 2020, 2020 when we went to the store for the first time and saw all the empty shelves. This was what I thought of, and so I came home and I painted it. I had seen the posts, on social media. I had heard the stories from the, friends and family telling me, be warned, there's nothing at the stores, but nothing prepared me for when I went to the store and saw all those empty shelves. So this was kind of a wink and nudge play on the screen. Definitely an expressionistic piece. So that was kind of my first real getting back into expressionism in a very long time. So the piece I'm going to do today is based off of this sketch that I did sometime last year. And, again, it's nothing political. It's nothing other than I was having a bad day and it just felt like everything was falling apart. And, we all have those days, and I'm sure we all had plenty of them in 2020 because, that's just kind of the way some of the days went then. But yeah, it's just for fun. So, don't want to start any controversies or, anything like that. There's nothing here other than some good fun. Okay. So hopefully you enjoy it, and I will see you on the other side. All right, guys, so I started off this project by coloring it in, or rather drawing it in with my watercolor pencils. So as you can see, I kind of had played around a little bit with the size of the person. First started off pretty small, and then I thought, I don't know, maybe that's a little too small. So I did make it bigger. I'm not sure what I would do. In the future. This is an 11 by 14, and I use this size on here because right now that's fits the best. This may actually work better as a landscape picture, which I had thought about because of course then the wall could be taller and really show those bricks falling. But this is what I did for this go around. So this one is going to be a little bit different too. With the Impressionism one, I used the palette knives. If you see what I'm using right now, this is actually the cut off from a gift card that I am using as my knife, or at least my painting tool. Again, showing you that you do not need a brush to paint. In fact, I don't use a brush this entire painting. I don't think, oh, you know what? I used it at the end. So I use it at the end of the painting. But for the most part, I am using this tool. I'm using this to, block out some of where the bricks aren't. And then I'm going to actually put the bricks in with it. You don't have to have a paint brush to paint. And part of this was inspired by another artist that I have been following who makes these amazing masterpieces, and she swears she doesn't use a brush at all. She uses her fingers. So that might be a little hint of what's coming. But you don't have to go out and spend a whole lot of money on stuff, and chances are there is stuff that you can use. I have been known to use plastic knives, forks, spoons. You've seen me use the palette knives, these gift cards I've used, and finger painting is always fun. It's a great place to start with little kids, especially if you got little kids, and they just want to have fun. It's totally an expressionistic piece if you put some paint out, cover the table with plastic, from the Dollar Tree, the plastic tablecloths, and just let them go to town on some papers or canvas boards or something. There's definitely going to be some expressionistic pieces. My youngest son is born in September, and this poor kid, like 3 years in a row, with his birthday, we had threats of hurricanes, and his birthday party had to be, postponed, moved, or whatever. For the longest time, anytime he would be given paint or crayons or whatever, every painting turned into a hurricane, and he would just get in with the paint brushes or even his hands and just make this big swirl, and he'd call it a hurricane. That was his painting. So anywho, it's fun. Just let them go to town and have some fun. Now, I will tell you, these cards, as you can see me here making those lines for the bricks, they do come in handy for that kind of stuff. So if you, are looking to draw straight lines, you don't have a palette knife, or maybe yours isn't around, you're using this, it's a great way to get some straight lines, for it. So that is what you're seeing me do here. Now, I did let the background dry before I started working with the person. This was done in a few phases, so you may see some the starts and stops where I joined the videos, but I did let the background dry so that the paint and the background paint and the paint for the person wouldn't mix. So here we go. We're going to start working on the person and the pants, and here is where I am getting in with some finger painting. So for the background, I used Mars Black and Natural Gray. For the pants, I am using Prussian Blue and Cobalt Blue, and the two of them together actually worked really well. Now, one thing I will say that I struggled with in the beginning, but really found that I think, getting the hang of getting some blending in with the finger painting, which is kind of fascinating. I may have to try that again. Now, flesh color is difficult. Doesn't matter what color you're trying to get. Anytime you get like the flesh color out of the crayon box or whatever, like I don't think even Band-Aid color, like nobody's skin is that color. So I'm using it straight out of the tube. Again, it's an expressionistic piece. But if you are ever painting people, please know that you are going to have to really blend it and play with the colors, mixing the colors, browns and whites and cream and, like an unbleached titanium and yellows and different, and every person's, skin color is different from really dark to really light, and you want to match it. Okay. Now I am not here, again, this is an expressionistic piece, and I guess that's one of the perks of this. I'm not really blending except for what happens to blend on my painting, which some of it on this person's right, so the arm on the left, I actually kind of like the way that that turned out as a painting. But, that's just sometimes how it goes. And now comes the hair. So the first thing I'm going to do is color the entire thing in, and then I actually let it dry. So I am using, I think I'm using burnt umber with this. I used a few different shades of brown, raw sienna, burnt umber, burnt sienna. I'm trying to remember. I also used brown for the shoes. I was thinking about using black, but I was afraid that that would just blend in too much with the background, and so I thought brown would possibly, work here. So that's what I did. And then I was going to try doing the hair, the streaks of the hair with my fingers, but as you're going to see here, that just really didn't work. I do like the way that the highlights on the jeans, on the skin for the most part, and on the shoes, really worked. It really gives it a more realistic piece to it. And I'm just going to let you guys know. So I have gone from every spectrum, I think, with art. When I was in high school, my work tended to be very, very dark. I guess it's just a phase I went through. Everything was very, very dark. And of course, my art teachers would warn me I really needed light in there. Then when I started painting back again, after how many years off of not doing it, I kind of went the opposite. Like everything was very, very light and bright, and I really didn't want to put those darks in. In order to get a realistic look or a three-dimensional look or whatever, you have to find the balance of light and dark. And I get it. If you want your work to look one way more than the other, that's fine, but you have to have at least a little bit of light in there for those shadows to really pop. And in order for the highlights to really pop, you really need to put in the shadows. It's just a balance you're going to have to find. Each artist is a little bit different. You'll find your style. You'll find what works best for you. Now, in the original drawing, I had the bricks falling, and I had thought about doing it, but I didn't know if, with the size of this picture, if it was going to be too little. So I just started writing, and I started thinking to myself, when I'm in these moments where I feel like everything's falling apart, what am I thinking? What's the things that are going through me? And so I just started writing those words down. And, again, it's very personal for me. Um, and that's okay. And I usually don't share these things, but I figure this time, with it being an expressionistic piece, me putting myself out there and letting you know that, this is what I was expressing is okay. No one else may see it. I have no idea, but I like it. And hopefully you do too. Hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully you find something that you can do, and we'll have a lot of fun with it. Oh, and by the way, I started spelling chaos wrong. Didn't even edit that out for you. See, I make mistakes too. And here is my finished piece. I'm not really sure if it's finished or not. I am going to play around with it. It definitely took some different directions than what I had planned. But it felt good. I am one who kind of tends to overthink things, and I do get stuck sometimes when I do that. And yeah, so I don't know. Again, yeah, I mean, I think I've talked about it before that sometimes, a lot of times for me, art is therapy. And it's not always painting a pretty flower. Sometimes it's just a great way for me to um, get my thoughts and feelings out. For a lot of artists, words aren't always, our first medium of choice, unless you're a writer or a poet or, something like that. For people who are more into the visual arts, sometimes the best way for us to express ourselves is to just, um, get out a piece of paper or something and start drawing. In fact, you know, random story. Last week, my one of my sons was really, really frustrated with his schoolwork. Really frustrated. He was just having a hard time, and he was having a hard time, I guess, maybe putting into words the way he was feeling. He went into his room, he grabbed paper and crayons, and he just scribbled, 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 and he came out and he said, "I feel better." Um, it's an amazing way to just kind of have a release. So, maybe that'll help you. Maybe it'll help your kids. Again, this is a much more personal piece than I, tend to do here, but hopefully it will help you or your kids to, I mean, it's okay. Every picture doesn't have to be of a pretty landscape scene or a flower or anything else. It's okay to get personal. It's okay to use this as your way to express how you're thinking or feeling. That's what art is supposed to do, okay? It's personal, it's for you. You're putting yourself on the paper. And then when you put it out there, well, you're putting it out there. I hope you guys enjoy this project. I can't wait to see them. Please post them when they're done. You can use the hashtag don't forget the art. I think you've seen, hopefully, my notes that I am on Instagram. I'm getting the YouTube channel set up, and I'm trying to get the website up and going, guys. Hopefully it'll all come together quickly. You guys take care. Happy arting, and I will talk to you real soon.